Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 67, we are talking about efficiency. That's right. This conversation will help you become more efficient in your workplace. Whether you're at a small business, medium size, it doesn't matter. These principles are universal. Efficiency, productivity, systems design. We talk about all of it with our guest, Alicia Butler Pierre. She is the CEO and founder of Equilibria, a boutique operations management firm specializing in increasing bandwidth for fast-growing small businesses. Again, what we talk about can apply to anybody, but that is her specialty. She hosts the Business Infrastructure Curing Back Office Blues podcast. I suggest you give it a listen. It is fantastic. She has a newsletter. She's written 2 books, and we go in detail in this conversation. It begins now with Alicia Butler Pierre. All right, Alicia, welcome. It's wonderful to see you.
Well, thank you, Chris, for having me.
So you're an author, you're a teacher. Equilibria has been around 18 years. You have a podcast. I've listened to it. I love it. So Alicia, as I say this to you, when you consult with these small companies and you interact with the leaders of these companies, how much of it is getting to the core beliefs of these leaders to allow them to take full advantages of your services?
One big thing that I advocate, Chris, is understanding what intrinsically motivates you as a leader. What is the end game? For some people, they want to sell. Okay, now that I understand that, my team and I can then figure out the best solution to propose and the best way to go about delivering the services. But it also starts with understanding the strategy. What are the strategic growth goals? You'd be surprised at how many people can't articulate that. We're just in it, right? We just know sometimes that the money is coming in. Maybe the money isn't coming in, but hopefully the money is coming in. You're moving fast and furious. It's exciting. No 2 days are the same. But what is the growth goal? Is your goal to double revenue over the next 3 years? Is your goal to eventually attract investors? Do you want to bring on partners to the business so that you aren't doing everything? Have you figured out who might succeed you as the CEO or as the leader at your company? Again, do you want to sell? It always starts with us asking that question first. What is the end game? What does it look like to you? What does your company look like 3 or 5 years from now? And then we kind of back into what is the small role that we over here from the business infrastructure or operational side of things, what can we do to make sure that that goal is not just a pie in the sky kind of a dream, but something that can actually be made a reality?
Alicia, when you were getting your education, you have a BS in chemical engineering from LSU, MBA in marketing management from Tulane. When you were a college student and then getting your MBA, did you know you had this passion for helping companies and people understand their greater mission and being organized, efficiency, productivity? Did you know all that back then? And then if not, when did you discover this passion that you have?
No, I did not know that. I was wearing hard hats and steel toe shoes, Chris. So I had a passion for chemistry. When I was working as a chemical engineer, I learned very quickly that I did not understand business. I didn't understand, Chris, the business decisions that were driving our day-to-day production schedules. So imagine one day you're being told to run at full capacity, 100%, and then the next day you're told, well, scale back by about 50%. So if you're used to doing 100 on one day, today you're only going to do 50. And then the day after that, you might be told to shut everything down altogether. So it just seemed erratic. I didn't understand the law of supply and demand and the marketplace and how things are not static Everything is moving. It's very dynamic. I mean, just look when we look at the stock market every day, right? No 2 days are the same. It changes by the hour. And those changes have an impact on production schedules. But I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the business behind what we were making. And so I went back to school. That's what prompted me to go back to school to pursue my MBA. I was working full time during the day, going to school at night. And I'll be honest with you, my business school education was the missing link. It just opened this whole new world to me. And I never saw anything the same way again. When I finished up my studies, I wanted to work at Coca-Cola. I relocated from New Orleans to Atlanta, where Coca-Cola is headquartered. Thought that I would be working there, Chris, newly minted MBA with this engineering background, and that did not happen. But what is interesting, I have actually done several projects for Coca-Cola, but just never as an employee, as an actual consultant. So it's just funny how things work out in life. But over the years, when I was pursuing a job, I actually decided to instead start a business. And that's where all of these passions that I've had, all of these work experiences that I had had up to that point, led me to the place where I am today, which is taking some of those engineering principles, taking some of those marketing and management and entrepreneurship things that I learned in business school, putting all of that together and coming up with what we have today.
I just want to know, this company that you have, Equilibria, it is, I've read about it, I've researched it. You help small businesses, and guess what? Small businesses need your help. Can you provide us a little summary of your services at this great company, please?
So we create business infrastructure for fast growing small businesses. What on earth is business infrastructure? Well, it's really a system for linking the people, the processes, and any tools or technologies that are needed to keep your business literally functioning and operating on a day-to-day basis. To that extent, we have a suite of services that we offer based on your budget as well as your availability, because as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, we don't have a lot of time. One thing that you can do is buy our book. It literally has step by step how you actually create and build business infrastructure for your company. So if you're more of a do-it-yourself kind of person, that's probably the best way to start, is to buy the book. It's called Behind the Facade: How to Structure Company Operations for Sustainable Success. Another way is through our podcast, believe it or not. Again, that's a free resource if you prefer consuming your information by audio because you're really busy again, or that's just your preferred method. We have over 250 episodes now where people come on and we talk about different tips and tricks and strategies for building the business infrastructure. But beyond that, Chris, what we have are consulting services. If you know that you need to have us come in, help build it for you, educate you and other people that may be working on your team. But one thing that we are doing, we're dipping our toes now into the training waters. So we actually, coming up very soon, we will be launching all of our training solutions as well, whether you want that training delivered on demand, completely remote, or what we would consider more traditional, where it's in classroom or in some type of a in-person type setup. So those are the different ways that we have of providing our services to actually help people not only understand what business infrastructure is, but how to build it and how that can actually be used to build a foundation upon which your company can not just continue to grow, but actually scale.
I love what you're saying here. Here's why. Because I have, let's say, for the lack of a better term, have doubled down on my leadership part of this podcast, right? Which is to discuss leadership with people and how they see getting communication better, or listening, or empathy, or hardcore, right? The going diving deep into leadership. However, I'm also an entrepreneur. So you're speaking both languages. Let's say somebody has, a dozen employees or so. What is the process? How would they go about doing that? How does it go? Take us through that, please.
It all starts with a conversation, Chris, just like you and I are having right now. I would recommend that people sign up for a free 15-minute discovery call. And that might not seem like a lot of time, but when you've been doing this as long as I have, I know what questions to ask to quickly figure out where you are and probably what you actually need. But then beyond that, what is the best way of giving you access to the information that you need so that you can make a decision. If you really do need something that's much more comprehensive and imbued into the culture of your own company, that might require a specific project. And from there, that's when we would actually start to have very detailed conversations about, is this a consultative type project? And if so, how do we scope that out based on your budget as well as your availability? I do want to mention one really quick thing, Chris, because you talked about the leadership aspect. One thing that's really important to remember, and I tell my students this, I teach a Lean Six Sigma course over at Purdue, and I tell them this all the time. You can have the best ideas for improving a process, whether it's leveraging AI or some form of automation, using new software, investing in certain machinery or equipment. But if you don't have the support of the leaders who will actually fund your project, it does you no good. So, to that extent, to circle back to what you were saying about leadership, leadership is paramount to making this business infrastructure possible, because the leadership, we set the tone for our company's culture. Even if you are a one man or one woman operation, you're literally setting the tone. So the question that you have to ask yourself is a leader, do you espouse the values of continuous improvement, innovation, making things better, doing things more efficiently, more productively? If that is what you want to build your company around, some of those key values, that is so important, because you might not see the fact that because we're able to do things quicker, better, cheaper, faster, it means that we increase our capacity to do even more, which does increase our top line revenue, right? But oftentimes as leaders, we just hear, oh, you want me to spend more money to invest in X? No, thank you. Why would I do that when the process we have right now is working perfectly fine? So that's why I love the fact that you did mention leadership, because leadership, process improvement, operations management, business infrastructure, it all goes hand in hand.
Okay. You've just really teed up an incredibly rich topic here, and I'm so glad that you did. So, Alicia, when you sit down with the founder, leader, CEO of these companies, and you start to uncover their why, how often are they clear about 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road?
Almost never. Almost never. And if it's of any consolation, I should say this also. We also work with large corporations as well. They can't always articulate that either. That's what's interesting. What we've seen in larger enterprises, Chris, is there are strategic growth goals. They're happening at the C suite, like way at the very, very top, the CEO, COO, CFO. But the problem is it doesn't trickle down throughout the rest of the organization. So oftentimes, mid-level managers, let's say VPs, people like that, they're working, but they're not necessarily working toward the strategic growth goals, unbeknownst to them. And that's why sometimes those projects might not get the blessing from the C suite that they're hoping to achieve, all because There's a miscommunication, there's a misalignment in priorities and projects. On the smaller businesses, again, we tend to think that, oh, that's corporate stuff. That's what the corporate guy, that's what the big guys do, Chris. That's we aren't that fancy. We aren't that formal. But I would challenge everyone who is either watching this right now or listening to us, really challenge yourself to think about, what do I want my company to look like 3 years from now? So by 2027, what does my company look like? Will I have a team? How large do I think that team might be? What would revenue look like? Would it be double? Would it be triple? What are some of the things that I need to start putting in place to make sure that this, again, just isn't some pie in the sky type dream, but we can actually make this happen? So I always encourage everyone that we talk to, think about what that growth goal looks like. What is the end game? And articulate that in the best way that you can. Put it down on paper. That's one way of formalizing it, getting it out of your head and into a format that can be shared with other people. And that's going to make my job that much easier, because then we aren't doing the work in vain. We have a compass. We all know what that North Star, where the North Star is, and we can all work toward that North Star.
Alicia, there is a great photo on your website, you standing with a gentleman with giant Post-its behind you. And there's probably 25 of them at minimum all over the room.
There were 42 of them.
I love that photo because that photo shows exactly what you're talking about. And by your, interacting with you right now, I can tell you have great patience. So when they're
Yes.
fleshing out those ideas and getting to that North Star, how much of your role is that patience? And as you said earlier in our conversation, patience coupled with asking the right questions. Fair?
And absolutely fair, Chris, but also being a great listener and not interjecting. Because we have all of these ideas. And the one thing I always tell my team is, the clients that we're working with, things are already in a chaotic state. The last thing in the world that they need is for us to add to the angst or the chaos. So let's go in, let's be calm, let's be patient, let's really listen and ask probing questions. And and what's always interesting is the answer lies in you. The answer is already there. Sometimes you just need that third party neutral person who doesn't necessarily have any skin in the game the same way that you do, to just kind of ask the right questions to guide you along that path and bring all of these otherwise disparate ideas and concepts and principles and activities that you're doing on a day-to-day basis and bring it all into one cohesive thing that can then be built upon, that will then be converted into job descriptions, that will then be converted into an organizational chart, that will then be converted into records management systems, documented processes and procedures, which, by the way, all of those things constitute your business infrastructure. So all we're doing is literally getting the information out of you.
So Alicia, you mentioned something earlier. So all these, the complex nature of the goals of the business, right? You also mentioned something that I wanted to double down on, which is this: the VPs or the directors or that level, right, of leadership not understanding the C level or the presidents or whatever. How do you bridge that gap? Is that part of some of those training sessions that you're talking about? Do you have ways in which to do that, activities, group activities, to bridge the gap of communication? Because if they're not communicating, all the goals that they have, as you have articulated throughout our conversation, are going to be very difficult to achieve, I think would be fair to say.
That's absolutely fair to say. And it's so funny because my answer is going to be so simple that you're going to be thinking, well, wait, surely there must be more to it than that. But honestly, Chris, it's literally about getting people in the same room. That's truly the answer. And whether it be through a Teams call, Microsoft Teams or Zoom, or if they actually can be in the same room at the same time and having those conversations. There's certain exercises again that we use. Things as simple as stick figures and index cards. You mentioned those really large post-it notes, the picture that you saw of me and a client from a few years back. But it would amaze you how something as simple as that, when you have that entire team sitting in a conference room and they see the walls, these very large post-it notes that are showing very detailed level everything that's going on, it's invoking conversations that have never been had before. So these are the kinds of things you'll hear. I didn't know you were doing that, Chris. Well, we do that too. Or, well, Chris, I had no idea you were doing that at all. How can I get that to you faster or in a better way? Or are there ways that we can improve that? It's facilitating conversations that have never been had before. And by the time a session like that ends, everyone can walk out of that room saying, okay, I finally understand what's going on. I get it. I didn't understand it before, but I get it. So I would encourage anyone, if you can actually get together in person with others that are on your team, always try to do that. Even if it's once a year, once a quarter, I would encourage you do that. You'll get so much done faster.
Alicia, so that begs the question, why don't teams meet like that on the regular? What is it about our business nature that doesn't tell us or speak to us that we should do this more often?
I think honestly, we're all so busy. We get slammed. We get caught up in the day to day. We're trying to get through the work that we need to get done. There's miles and miles of work to do. You have an inbox full of unanswered emails. We are all so busy. There are so many distractions that we have going on throughout the day. And despite our best intentions, we just might drop the ball in sharing certain things with certain people. Not that it's, again, always intentional, but we get so caught up in what we're doing that we honestly forget. Now, sometimes it might be intentional, where the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. But more often than not, especially in small businesses, we're on the grind, we're hustling, we're knocking things out as they come along. And sometimes we forget to circle back and make sure that the others on our team are aware of what we're doing. One thing that I am a huge advocate of is having a weekly team meeting, especially if you and your team are small enough where you can do that. Have that one day out of the week for just an hour where you all start to share everything that you're working on. And that's one major way that you can get the ball rolling in terms of transparency, communication, as well as visibility.
Alicia, as I watch you tell the story of the creation of your business and your evolution as a person, right, and your learning journey, is it safe to say, to connect the dots, when you got into the MBA and that you said, that you had this awakening per se, that those weren't your words, but that's how I interpreted, right? That I needed that business acumen to forward myself, right, in my career. Is it safe to say that you want to give that feeling that you had to your clients? Am I oversimplifying it, or am I on the right path?
No, I think that is a great way. I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. That's absolutely right. We all start our businesses with a passion. Sometimes we can forget what that passion was because we can get so, let's be honest, entrepreneurship is hard. It is
Yes.
hard. It is a lot of work. Think about it, Chris. I know you'll probably agree with me on this. You probably work a lot harder than most of your friends, right? That actually have jobs working for someone else, right? I know I do. So you better love what you do when you start your business, because you will eat, sleep, and breathe it. Sometimes you can't turn it off. It will literally keep you up at night. So make sure you have that passion. And sometimes it can be difficult to lose sight of, why am I doing this again? Why am I putting myself through this? This client hasn't paid me in over 90 days. This is BS. Why do I put myself through this when it would be so much easier to just go and work somewhere else? But whenever I'm having a moment like that, I start reflecting on things like that picture that you mentioned. And I go back and I look at a picture like that and I think about the fact that that company, which was a payments processing company, they did over $1 billion in revenue not too long after that picture was taken. I know, right?
I'm speechless. Alicia,
that
that is
picture, that picture was taken in 2019. Kudos to the CEO for having the foresight. He said, we need to get things in place. I just have this feeling, Alicia. Sure enough, COVID comes onto the scene the following year, and they were ready. Their business skyrocketed because so many more people were using debit cards to make transactions, to pay for certain things. So they were ready. They were ready. Um, so I have to remind myself of things like that. And sometimes I do have pictures of certain clients that I keep on my desk, and I look at them and I remember the story. A lot of times there are tears involved. You know, it can get very emotional because you're asking these CEOs, what is it that you want to do? Why did you start this? And they start telling you their stories, and you're hearing about their families, and they want to create a legacy and or a family owned business. I want to leave this to my children. So that passion is there. And sometimes even I myself, as a consultant running my own company, it gets tough. But I have to remind myself, why am I doing this again? And I look at those pictures, or I'll listen back to this particular podcast interview, and I'm like, this is why I'm doing what I do.
oh, that's so awesome. I just got to tell you that. And you know, you talked about as an entrepreneur, we're up at night, and my goodness, I'm up all the time, and I got a little notepad next to my bed, and I fill that thing, and I don't know what the heck I'm writing because I don't turn the light on. But that, you know, that's right, Alicia. I bet you have
Yes, it's
pen
crazy.
next to your bed as well. It's just,
It's crazy.
it really is, and it's so humbling. But you hit the perfect tone, which is to say, we keep reminding ourselves why we're doing this. Why are we doing this? To help people, to help them find what really makes them go, and helping others. It's just very powerful and very important, Alicia. Very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's do all-star moments, and we'll let you go
Uh-oh.
be with clients.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Are you
Okay.
ready? All right,
I
here we
think
go.
so, Chris. Okay.
We've got this. Alicia, first thought, best thought, let's rock. First one, how do you deal with adversity?
I deal with adversity by listening or watching the stories of other successful people, because every single person who is the GOAT of whatever their industry is has had some trials and tribulations.
I got it. I don't, I love that. Here we go. Two, how do you give yourself fuel?
Lately, I have been meditating. I never thought I would ever be able to turn the mind racing that we were just talking about. I've never thought I would be able to turn it off, but it's only for like 15 minutes, okay? But that helps set me. The other thing is I make it a point to take my afternoon siesta, which is
Ooh.
usually 30 minutes, and it recharges me.
So meditating in the siesta.
Yes.
Three, never give up. What does that mean to you?
Never give up. It means going, keep going, even when everyone around you is telling you to stop, to give it up. Because I was told several times, you should hang this up. This isn't going to work. You're not making any money. And here we are almost 19 years later. So it means you have to, again, go back to that original passion. You were given that passion and that purpose for a reason. Not everybody is going to understand it, and it is hard. It is hard to keep going when everyone around you is telling you that you shouldn't. But there's something inside of you that even you sometimes can't explain. But if it was given to you, it was given to you for a reason. Act on that.
Wow, you've got me speechless. Okay, here we go. Value of collaboration. How important is it?
That is my theme. My theme for this year is partnerships. You cannot go it alone. And I recognize that now more than ever. Real quick sidebar, I had a very serious surgery that I went through a couple of years ago. And that was when it really clicked, like, girlfriend, you cannot do this alone. Do not go on the rest of this journey. And as you enter this second act of life, don't go about this by yourself. Leverage other people. You have a network, use it.
5, you've hired people to work with you over the years. What do you look for in an ideal person to hire?
Someone who appreciates continuous learning, someone who is coachable. That is so huge for us. You have to love learning new things and never becoming so comfortable that you become resistant to any type of change.
Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
I lead by example. I believe in giving autonomy, and I encourage you to become better than I am at what I do. So become the GOAT of whatever it is that you're really good at. Because one thing I will never do is micromanage you, and I will never, never dim your light in order for mine to shine. Because together we all shine brighter.
Lastly, what's the difference between a manager and a leader?
A leader is setting the tone. A manager is making sure that all of those I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. But that leader is saying, this is the direction that we're going in. Buckle up your seatbelt, baby, because we're about to go on this ride. Are you coming along with me? And the manager is in the back saying, okay, everybody, this is what the leader wants to do. And what are the different things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis to make sure we head in that right direction.
Awesome. Alicia, this was wonderful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you so much.
And we thank Alicia very much for being on the show. My number one takeaway is this. When we were discussing how do you get everyone on the same page, from the VPs, directors, communicating well with the president and the senior leadership executives, and she said it's a simple way of starting. Get them all in the same room and then break it down. Ask them good questions. Get to the heart of the matter through listening, question asking, and sharing ideas. And then all of a sudden, they will be asking questions of each other. I thought that was fascinating, and I loved the way Alicia broke it down. Hope you enjoyed the conversation very much. We'll be back with you next week with another great guest, everybody, on Keep the Line Moving. Have a great week. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.